Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I'm doing a little discussion talking about Gold Pride and what they need going forward. Gold Pride's in a good position. Any new TCG exclusive archetype is technically in a good position. They don't always end up there at the end of the day, but relatively speaking, if I were to tell you you're going to get a new archetype, they're going to get 14 new cards bare minimum within a span of 3 or 4 months of each other, you'd be like, okay, that's a really good sign. Now, it doesn't always turn out that way, like I said, War Rock, but I do think Gold Pride's in a pretty good position. So today we're talking about Gold Pride, what they have, what they're going to need from this next wave of support in the next month and a half, and and just kind of cover all that. So if you don't know much about Gold Pride, they are a cool kind of race-themed archetype with a couple of different racing characters that are racing against each other, saving the day, all that kind of stuff. They have 3 manic monsters, 1 spell, 1 trap, and 2 main extra deck monsters, a Link and a Synchro. They're cool. They do a lot of really good things. One thing I like about the archetype so far, a ton, every single card we have so far, I'm like, that's just a pretty good card. Which you can't always say about some of these archetypes. Sometimes you look at some of these archetypes and they may have some stuff going on in that first wave, but a lot of times you're not always able to say every single card here is solid. And I think that is one of the cases here. So Leon, all of the main deck monsters have this stipulation that if your life points are currently lower than your opponent's, all of their main deck monsters can just summon from hand. Pretty, super free, really powerful extenders. On top of that, they get additional value. So Leon, when he is normal or special summon, he can actually target a non-warrior Gold Pride monster in grave and special summon it in defense position. So not the Link, but everything else. He does lock you into Gold Pride monsters from the X deck for the rest of the turn, but, I don't think that's the craziest thing in the world, especially if we're going to get another 7 card wave of support. He also has a quick effect on the opponent's turn during the main phase to do a quick synchro summon using Gold Pride monsters you control. Usually that's going to be a quick 6. I guess with their in-archetype stuff so far, it is possible to make a 9 or an 11, but they don't have one in their archetype yet. Now, it can make a generic synchro. It just needs, the materials need to be Gold Pride. So that's still doable, but still a very powerful card nonetheless. It's a +1 that also gives you the potential to quick sync on the opponent's turn. I like it. Captain carries the next one. Again, same extension effect from hand, but when this one's summoned, it searches a Gold Pride trap. Now, we only have 1 Gold Pride trap right now in the deck. I would love to see a second one. I like decks that have traps. I love that Konami is not just saying, traps are the worst main deck cards in the game. Let's just make only spells and monsters. I like it when they still make decks that use traps. Plus, the trap that we already have is really solid. I just like to see a different option. So we'll see. We'll see if we get another one, because it does search any Gold Pride trap. It would just be weird if the deck only had 1 trap to search. So I'd like to see something there. It also has a bonus effect to give a buff to a Gold Pride monster you control, but not that important. Just gives attack to it, whatever. And the last main monster is Nitro Head. Nitro Head's pretty cool. He actually is pretty niche, but also if this deck became a full-on fleshed out archetype, this card could be super important. I'm talking post side. This is a card that gives your opponent a token. So turns off Lightning Storm, turns off Evenly Matched, turns off Imperm. You know what I mean? Turns off the Kashtira monsters. This giving your opponent a token is really broken. Even if it doesn't do anything after that. And this card also has the benefit of being able to pop cards in the adjacent zones of that token on the opponent's turn. So really, really powerful card. Also has good stats and, just a big body that jumps on the board. Not bad at all. Moving on from there, you move to the Link. This card has the ability to pop any monster your opponent controls and then destroy all cards in your opponent's adjacent columns if your life points are lower than theirs, which is pretty easy. And then this stipulation that all the extra deck monsters have so far for this archetype, which is what I think gives this archetype a really interesting thing. Just thing in general, just part of their deck, which is once per turn during the end phase, if this effect was activated this turn, which all of them have an effect that you ideally would be activating any turn, given turn they're on the field, you return them to the extra deck, and if you do special summon a Gold Pride, this one only summons Nitro Head, but the other one summons Leon straight from deck or graveyard. And so getting Nitro Heads, obviously, give your opponent a token, have the quick effect to pop stuff. Like, there's still value there. Now, the Synchro summons Leon, which is more valuable to me because most likely, if you even got to him in the first place, you would probably already have Carry engraved. So you'd be able to summon Leon Reborn Carry, and then have an immediate Synchro 6 again on the opponent's turn, which is really solid. Speaking of which, this guy, if your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can target a monster your opponent controls, gain its attack, and then destroy that monster, which is pretty cool. And then that float effect kind of on end phase is really cool. I hope all their extract monsters have something like that, because that's just a pretty good effect. Like, just on end phase, you're going to reload and rotate resources, which is very cool. The only spell for the archetype is a pretty good consistency spell. It reveals a Gold Pride monster in hand as cost to add a Gold Pride monster with a different name from deck to hand. Not bad at all. Then you can apply the following effect, which is special summon a Gold Pride from hand but lose life points equal to its attack. That's really good for two reasons. First and foremost, this just becomes summon any Gold Pride from deck, essentially, as long as you're able to meet the requirements to activate. And then you pay life points, which makes all the rest of the archetype live to special summon, which just turns them all on. Because if your life points are lower than your opponent, they're all like really good extenders from hand. So that's really, really important. The only downside of this card right now is, at the moment, we only have 3 main deck monsters. The more main deck monsters, the better this card gets, because it's just going to be consistently live. And right now, it's not always consistently live, which is kind of annoying. But down the line, obviously, with this new wave, that could definitely change. Start your engine is really good. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster, you can target one of them, reveal any 3 Gold Prides from deck. That could just even be the same name, 3 Leon, 3 Carry, 3 Nitro from deck, and your opponent picks 1 to special, and then the rest go back into the deck. Then you destroy the targeted monster. So it's popping a monster and summoning you a Gold Pride from deck, which is very, very powerful. I mean, in and of itself, like, it would just be a 1 from 1 if it's summoned from deck. It would just be a 1 from 1 if it popped a monster, but it does both. That's very nice. I like this card a lot. It's not even once per turn as well, which is important to note. And the last thing I want to mention, because that's all the cards we have so far, is Punks. Punks synergize with this archetype so insanely well because of their special summon effects. The deck is not normal summon reliant at all, especially if you combine it with an engine that does pay life points easily, because then your whole engine is able to just special from hand as extenders. And so Punks fit this build really, really well. You've got multiple of the small ones that pay life points to activate their effects very early in combos. So you are very early turning all the rest of your deck on to be awesome extenders. They also are synchro based, so they have some of the exact levels you kind of want to line up anyway. And Punk as an individual engine already has some really good payoff. So I've seen people play pure Punk recently and have some decent success. So splashing in that extra engine obviously isn't hurting too much. Now, the question would be, if you're playing pure Punk, you have all this space for like defensive cards, hand traps, board breakers, all that stuff, which obviously gets cut down if you're going to combine the two. But it is still worth noting that this seems to be the best engine to combine with Gold Pride at this point. So that's everything we really have right now, in a nutshell. Moving on to what I really want to see. We are pretty much guaranteed, I don't want to say 100%, but like, this is the pattern they've been doing, 7 new cards in the new set. That is a ton. I mean, listen, I talk about how structure decks are one of the best things that could happen to one of your favorite archetypes, because it's 8 new cards. They're gonna push it, and it's a great spot to be in. 7 more new cards is huge. Here's what I want. I want 3 more main deck monsters. I kind of want a mirror image of what we already have. 3 main deck monsters. I think 2 minimum is what we need to see. Just because for the spell, we just need this to be boosted. So we need at least, if we get 3 monsters, maybe one of them will be whack and the other 2 could be playable. But that's what we need. We need at least 2 more good playable main deck monsters. So that way you want to play them, you want to draw them, and that makes the crowd goes wild that much more consistent. That's the first thing. From there, I also want to see another spell, something. I don't know if I guess it could be an extender, because this card's more of a starter to me. You know, something there. I honestly don't even know like what exactly I want. There's a ton of routes that could go with it. If they want to make a road of field spell, fine, because that would be another card that finds you a monster to make Crowd Goes Wild even liver. You know, a monster reborn card, fine, whatever we need. Something there. There's got to be at least one more spell here, just for something. It would feel weird if this was the only spell in the entire deck. Trap-wise, I said this before, I want to see one more trap card. I'm not even exactly sure what I want to see here exactly. It could just be another form of interruption. As far as this card goes, it's an okay interruption that also gets you to your engine. So that's what's so cool about it. I'd like to see another trap that maybe it's just harder interruption. Just a more powerful interruption, but doesn't get you to your engine. And that's the trade-off. Do I go for the really powerful interruption, or do I go for the card that's uninterruption, decent, but then also is just getting me a monster from deck, which obviously you love. And then you have that trade-off. So that would be really cool to see. Maybe a counter trap. I don't know. Like they give a lot of decks counter traps nowadays. So that'd be what I want to see for the main deck. And then for the extra deck, I'm not exactly sure where they go. The link almost feels weird, like almost a little bit out of place. Like, why did they even go with this as like one of the cards in the deck? I feel like this could have easily been a synchro if they had just adjusted some of the levels of the main deck cards. But since they've kind of set the precedent, I kind of just want to see another link and another synchro. If not, one link and two more synchros. Maybe we'll get a link 3. Maybe it'll be just another link 2, and you'll just, you know, they're better in different situations. You just pick which one is better in a certain scenario. But since they started, why not? I guess they could go off with that if they want. The synchros to me seem more important. The levels are kind of weird to me though, because you've got 2 3s in the main deck and an 8. Only one tuner. Now they are generic, at least this guy's generic, and I would assume anything else would also be generic. So they are kind of open to other engines being able to support them, which isn't, but normally just synergistically wise, you'd want your engine to kind of make them, easily. So I don't know if they make another 6. I don't know if they make something like an 11, because you already have Nitro Head and a level 3, so a level 3 and an 8. Maybe they get an 11 there. I'm honestly not sure, but Starleon is just an okay interruption. I think that's the end of the day where I'm at so far, is the win condition for this deck seems just okay. Now, if you throw in the punk stuff, obviously the ceiling increases. So I'm not going to say set in stone. It's hard for archetypes like that are very open, able to mix with stuff, and other archetypes are affecting the power level and stuff, because it's easier to look at just an archetype by itself and judge it. But with all these extra factors, it makes it harder to judge overall. But I'd like to see something, some boss. It feels like they don't actually have a boss monster. Like Starleon's, I guess, supposed to be their boss monster, but he doesn't feel like a real boss monster. He's not all the way there. They probably need a higher star synchro monster to kind of fill that role. And hopefully we'll get it here. I know we're probably at least going to get a extract monster equivalent of Carry, because we have the Leon extract monster, we have the Nitro Heads extract monster, but we don't have one for Carry yet. And then on top of that, I would expect at least one more main deck monster, and then maybe an extract monster to correspond to that monster as well. But yeah, this archetype is really cool. It's very open-ended. There's very few restrictions to the archetype, as a whole here. So obviously there's a lot of open avenues they can go with to try and support it. But it's 7 new cards. I don't think they need to hit all of them. I think if they hit 3 or 4, it could be enough. I mean, there's an argument that Gold Pride Punk is already like a playable rogue deck. So they don't need a ton. They just need a little push. Hopefully it's bigger than just a little, but, that's kind of where we are at. So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Sorry about the rambling. I can't really help it, but I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below on Gold Pride. What do you want to see specifically? If you've already messed around with this archetype, I've kept an eye on it. I know what the cards do, but I haven't played a ton of it myself. Just because, when a TCG exclusive archetype comes out, you don't have the second wave, you're kind of like, okay, let me see the second wave before I start to mess with this. So I've kind of held off to this point, but if you have been messing around with it and you know more you know, intimately more about this archetype, let me know what you specifically want to see. I'd love to see that in the comment section down below. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bruges.